What's happening, everybody? On today's show, several SEC teams punched their tickets to Omaha, proving the SEC West was probably stronger than we thought this season. And a disappointing end to the year for the Tennessee Volunteers. The number one seed as their season is cut short. And Arch Manning visits Alabama, tries on the uniform. We'll discuss that. Locked on SEC starts right now.
Are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Great to have you guys along. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On SEC is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and at LockedOnSEC.com. All right, let's jump into it. Plenty to discuss from the weekend that was in the Super Regionals, as several SEC teams in play, 5 to be exact. But first, before we get to what happened on Sunday, we got to go back to a little bit on Saturday, as history was made for the SEC in baseball on Saturday, as all 5 SEC teams picked up victories on Saturday. That is something that no other conference has ever done in the history of the Super Regionals. 5 W's on Saturday. And that wasn't the case on Sunday. We'll get to that here. Everything was going according to plan for the Tennessee Volunteers. The number 1 seed on Sunday at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. The Vols led Notre Dame 3-1 heading to the 7th inning. Freshman sensation Chase Burns was cruising through 6, allowed just 1 run, but with Carter Putz on base, catcher David Lamanna sent a line drive over the right field wall to even the score. And soon after, Notre Dame ran across a bunch of more runs, and they punched their ticket to Omaha. Tennessee's bats were cooled by a trio of Notre Dame pitchers, including freshman standout Jack Finley, who just 2 days after throwing 58 pitches went 5 innings, allowing just 1 hit and shutting down the top-seeded Volunteers. Tennessee, by the way, was 49-0 when leading after 6 innings. Coming into Sunday, Tennessee trailed by 1 in the 8th. They were positioned to have 2 outs with a runner on, but Trey Lipscomb made a low throw to first that Luke Lipsius could not pick, putting 2 on with 1 out instead, and the Irish took advantage. And so the door closes on what was otherwise a historically great season for the Tennessee Volunteers, a team that won a program record 57 games, but they cannot get the win that they needed most, as Tony Vitello's bunch put up a ton of home runs all season long, got some really good pitching on the staff. Evan Russell and Luke Lipsius, they broke Todd Helton's career home run record on Saturday, both hitting their 39th career home runs. Todd Helton even gave a tip of the cap to them. But the team that had the best record in college baseball for much of this season comes up 1 win short of a return trip to Omaha. And the crazy thing is, and we talked about it on Friday's podcast, remember Ryan Cole, left fielder for Notre Dame, was asked what might be troubling about the Fighting Irish from the Tennessee perspective, and he said, quote, "I couldn't tell you exactly what they see, but if I were them, I'd be a little scared. I think we're a very dangerous team." Well, Notre Dame Irish proved to be. So while the Vol fans in our audience are upset and disappointed, I will say this: I've seen a lot of other SEC fans peacocking, celebrating when they saw the Vols get eliminated. There seemed to be a theme out there of karma coming back and biting the Vols. Some opposing teams considered the Vols classless in several aspects and flipping the bird and things like this. Again, like I've seen some Tennessee fans say, if that was happening on your team, you would have embraced it. You would have loved it. You would have said that's awesome. But when it's not your team, some people take that differently and say, oh, you're classless, and they're going to celebrate when they see you go down. In fact, known SEC hater Danny Cannell, he tweeted out, "Congrats Tennessee baseball on a great season. So many memorable moments, like flipping opponents off, rounding the bases, coach getting tossed for chest bumping an umpire, crying over balls and strikes, and of course, so many pimped out bat flips. What a legacy. Hashtag Daddy Gang. Again, if you're Tennessee, you won the SEC title, you won the SEC tournament, a lot to celebrate and not hang your head over. The Tony Vitello era has been very good and made Tennessee baseball very relevant in a strong way once again. But falling one game short of a return trip to Omaha at your house in a game you had the lead late, it just stings that much more. So they'll have the offseason to regroup. But again, just understand from the other 13 teams in the SEC perspective why some of those other schools may be celebrating your demise rather than saying, hey, great season otherwise. Now let's get into a little bit on some of the teams who did punch their ticket. We start on Saturday as Texas A&M beat Louisville on Saturday 4-3 to become the first team to advance to the College World Series this season. Coach Jim Schlossnagle needed just one season to turn last place Texas A&M baseball into a College World Series contender, as A&M is heading back to the College World Series for the first time since 2017, sweeping Louisville in front of a combined 13,000 plus fans in 2 days. A&M punched their ticket to Omaha. Fans watched on as that same team that lost the series to Ivy League Penn back in February became the first program to go prepare for a national title. On Friday night, they delivered a 5-4 walk-off victory over Louisville as Troy Claunch delivered some Olsen Field magic after midnight. It was a late one. I fell asleep on it. And then Micah Dallas pitched well enough on Saturday to keep the Aggies in it. A sac fly from Dylan Rock scored the go-ahead run in the seventh, and the Aggies held on to get the victory. It's just a very impressive year one performance by the longtime TCU head coach, Jim Schlossnagle, who we had on the show before the start of the season. And I remember talking to Coach Schloss about, how challenging this thing was going to be to build this thing up, and it's going to take some time. He made it seem like, this was going to be a rebuild. It was going to take, a couple of years to get this thing really back on the tracks and going strong. But, man, it took him no time at all to live up to the expectations of College Station, taking the Aggies in year one to Omaha. I just want to stress, the Aggies didn't even qualify for the SEC tournament a year ago. They have found some pieces there. Jim Schlossnagle has done a fantastic job finding some arms, finding some guys to deliver some big clutch hits. And the Texas A&M Aggies going to Omaha, absolutely nothing short of impressive what Jim Schlossnagle has done in year one. And by the way, future SEC foe Oklahoma, they won the Blacksburg Super Regional over Virginia Tech. So Texas A&M will face the Sooners in the Aggies' first game of the 2022 College World Series. So some former Big 12 blood against one another there. But, man, can't say enough about what Schloss did. It's just unbelievable. When we go back and look at our schedule, our show previewing the SEC baseball season this year, I remember saying, I think Jim Schlossnagle is a good head coach, but I just thought, with what the talent he inherited on this team, just didn't think it was going to be good enough. And I think a lot of people felt that same way. Unbelievable that the Aggies are competing for a national championship in Omaha in year one. I mean, what are expectations down the road for Schlossnagle? What if he doesn't make Omaha next year? It's going to be a disappointment. But nonetheless, I know those fans at College Station are fired up, and congrats to them for exceeding expectations big time in year one. All right, when we return, we're going to get into Ole Miss and Arkansas, what it took for them to punch their tickets and their chances moving forward. We'll get to that in just a second, but need to remind you guys about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information. Find out all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including you got the NBA Finals going on, you got the NHL Finals, you got Major League Baseball, and, of course, all the latest fighting news from MMA to UFC to boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head on over to their website today. You can do so on your mobile device, learn about all the trends and action. I always tell you, bookmark the page on your phone. It should be the first place you start every day at betonline.net. It is BetOnline, and it is where the game starts. Continuing on here, Locked On SEC. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Quick reminder, the ultimate NBA mock draft starts June 16th. With over 50 insiders, nothing equals the ultimate NBA mock draft. The Locked On NBA big board, draft experts, plus the Odyssey insiders. First pick is June 16th. Search Ultimate NBA Mock Draft and follow so you don't miss a pick. All right, let's jump back into it. Discussing what happened this past weekend in the Super Regionals. The next team to punch their ticket. We already talked about Texas A&M punching their ticket. How about the Ole Miss freaking Rebels? Many thought weren't even going to make the postseason, and they are going to Omaha. The Rebels shut out Southern Miss in Hattiesburg on Saturday 10-0. Before coming out back to shut them out again on Sunday, 5-0. On Saturday, Dylan DeLucia pitched 5 2/3 innings, shutout ball, 9 strikeouts. Tim Elko drove in 3 runs on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we were scoreless until the bottom of the 5th. The Rebels put up a 3 spot to take the lead. And as I mentioned, went on to win it 5-0, shutting out Southern Miss in their own Super Regional in Hattiesburg. Remember all that talk of, hey, the Southern Miss folks are trying to make it difficult on the Ole Miss fans on getting tickets to the Super Regional? Well, the Ole Miss faithful showed out. They were represented well there in Hattiesburg, and now they're going to be represented in Omaha. And I got to say this, Mike Bianco, he was dead man walking, it felt like at one point. I mean, literally a few weeks ago, the talk was Ole Miss was going to miss the postseason, and change might have to be made, that maybe just Mike Bianco's run his course. And everybody loves him. He's a great guy, and he's been there a long time. But prior to this one trip to Omaha, it just was kind of like, what are we doing? And now he's completely redeemed himself. Probably going to get a contract extension out of this and a chance to win the whole damn thing in Omaha. I do have to give a hap tip on Sunday. Hunter Elliott, outstanding on the mound for the Rebels, pitching 7 1/3 innings, allowing no runs off just 3 hits with 10 strikeouts. And Ole Miss going to face the winner of the Auburn-Oregon State Super Regional over in Omaha. Congrats to the Rebels. Again, a lot of people just had them, projected not even to make the postseason a couple weeks ago. In fact, we thought it. I even said it on this podcast that both Mississippi teams were going to miss the postseason. Mississippi State, obviously the reigning national champs. Wouldn't it be something if Ole Miss could break through and win it this year, and both teams of the Egg Bowl rivalry winning baseball championships? That would be something. But again, big congrats to Mike Bianco. Heck of a year for the Ole Miss Rebels to punch all the right buttons and get them to Omaha. Unbelievable. The other SEC West team, seems to be a theme here, but the other SEC West team that has punched their ticket, Dave Van Horn and the Arkansas Razorbacks. They are back in Omaha. Will the Thrill McIntyre, he pitched a shutout 5 2/3 innings, and the Razorbacks got the job done to win the Chapel Hill Super Regional and advance back to Omaha, winning 4-1 on Saturday before going on to win Game 2 on Sunday. Arkansas had a 2-0 lead for much of Game 2 on Sunday before the North Carolina Tar Heels came back to tie it 2-2 in the 7th, getting into the Arkansas bullpen. The Tar Heels then took the lead in the top of the 9th, 3-2. But the Razorbacks would not be denied. They scored 2 runs in the bottom of the 9th for the walk-off win. Brady Slavin sent the Hogs to Omaha with a base hit up the middle to walk it off, scoring Peyton Stovall. And the Razorbacks going to play for the College World Series. Connor Nolan, by the way, pitched a gem on Saturday, going 6 2/3 innings, allowing no runs off 6 hits with 6 strikeouts. Peyton Stovall hit a home run. Braden Webb had a bunch of hits with a home run. And the Razorbacks are right where they wanted to be in the College World Series. I can't help but think last year's Razorbacks team that won 50 games saw their season come to a crushing end at home in that super regional, falling to NC State. It's just so funny because you look at it and go, that last year's team was better. Last year's team was more talented. They had more weapons. Funny how it works out that way. But Arkansas, the 2022 Arkansas Razorbacks are heading to Omaha. They will play the winner of the Stanford-UConn Super Regional. And congrats to Dave Van Horn and congrats to Hawks fans who I know were disappointed and heartbroken last season and how that ended. And much how Tennessee feels today. Will Tennessee be that team to rebound next year and get back to Omaha, kind of like Arkansas is in this spot? Now, quick disclosure here. As of the time we were recording this podcast, it's early on a Sunday evening. Auburn and Oregon State have not played. Auburn leads that series 1-0. If Auburn goes on to beat Oregon State in this game, obviously Auburn will be advancing as well. We just have no way of knowing because the time we're recording here, playing on the stupid West Coast with 9 p.m. Central starts, it's just very difficult. So Tuesday's show, we will completely recap whatever happens with Oregon and Oregon State and Auburn. But go Auburn Tigers. Let's see if we can get our 4th SEC West team to punch their ticket to Omaha. But we'll have a full recap for you very soon. Just one other baseball note. I saw LSU, one of the teams that was not able to overcome Southern Miss in the regional round and ended their season first year under Jay Johnson. LSU already making some news via the transfer portal for 2023. On Saturday, right-hander Dylan Tebrake out of Creighton announced he is committing to LSU via the transfer portal. He spent 4 seasons with Creighton and was the ace the past 2 years. He tweeted out, excited to announce I will be grad transferring to LSU. He was the pitcher of the year in the Big East for 2 years running, winning the award in 2021 and 2022. This year, he went 8-2 in 17 starts with a 2.81 ERA and 115 strikeouts in 93 innings pitched. For his career, he's thrown for over 220 innings, over 49 appearances, made 37 starts with a 2.84 ERA. He has allowed just 14 home runs in his career. So that's a big addition for LSU. And kind of looking at it going, man, if LSU had only had that guy this season, they could have probably punched their ticket and been in Omaha. But nonetheless, big pickup there for LSU for the 2023 baseball season. Thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Arch Manning at Alabama, wearing an Alabama uniform. What does that mean for his recruiting? We'll discuss that in just a second. But we will return in just a second right here on Locked On SEC. All along here, Locked On SEC. Thanks again for making us your first listen every day. And got some football nuggets to hit on very quickly, so let's do it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch! Around the conference.
Arch Manning, the top player in the 2023 recruiting class. Grandson of Archie Manning, son of Cooper Manning, nephew of Peyton and Eli Manning. His recruitment being followed very closely, and 3 major schools seem to be on his final list. Now, he has not named the final one, but according to a lot of pundits following this very closely, they think it's a 3-horse race between Alabama, Georgia, and Texas. A few weeks ago, we saw him don the Georgia uniform in his visit in Athens, and over this past weekend, Arch visited Tuscaloosa. And he tweeted, there are pictures put out there on social media of him wearing the Alabama gear. The picture that he took was alongside a 4-star offensive lineman for 2023. But why this is interesting is Alabama just recently landed the commitment from 4-star quarterback Eli Holstein out of the state of Louisiana. But many expect the Tide to stay involved with Arch Manning's recruitment. Manning faces a big decision where he'll play his college ball, and he's taking his time to make the right decision. There was also another picture that came out later with Manning wearing a gray Alabama sweatsuit in a photo with several other recruits on their visits as well. Arch Manning, or rather Steve Wiltfong from 24/7 Sports, said over the weekend, I'm told there was a group text going on with the 14 visitors, and they were still having dialogue after they all left Alabama. He said Georgia is still very much in the mix for Arch Manning. They have as good a shot as anybody to land him, in my opinion. But his coach said he is trying to enjoy all his official visits. It's a fun time for him. He's in a good spot, and he's having fun. Had a good time at Georgia and at Alabama. So we will see as Arch maybe gets closer to making a decision. But nonetheless, a lot of Alabama fans tweeting out over the weekend, Arch looks good in the crimson colors. Uniform looks good on him. Oh, he's smiling in that photo. He's smiling more in the photo at Alabama than he was at Georgia. He must be happier, must have had a better trip. Just very funny to dive into some of the extra stuff that goes with the recruiting. Nobody knows where Arch is going right now. And again, I'm told by several people, Texas still very much in the mix for him as well. This thing could still take more time. But would not surprise me. Would not surprise me if he picked Alabama. Of course, we would see maybe a decommitment from Eli Holstein if that were to happen. Would not surprise me if he went to Georgia. Yes, Georgia's got some other talented quarterbacks on that roster, but with Stetson Bennett moving on, could start there. Bryce Young moving on from Alabama, Arch could start there after this coming season. So plenty of things on the table for Arch Manning, and his recruitment will be one we will continue to monitor here on Locked On SEC in the coming weeks. Kentucky could be making an interesting addition to their running back group. Kentucky hosted Ramon Jefferson, a transfer portal running back who got some all-American recognition at FCS program Sam Houston State. Jefferson talked about his visit with 24/7 Sports. He said, it was nice. I really enjoyed it. I really like their offensive scheme. I feel like it'll fit my playing style. The staff and players I spoke with are really down to earth and open. Great conference. And Kentucky has been very successful over the past few seasons. Jefferson has been in the transfer portal since back in January. After a couple of weeks in the portal, he committed to Colorado, then decommitted back in May. And according to 24/7 Sports, he has been in contact with several programs, including Tennessee and Kentucky. His career began in 2017 at Maine. After 2 seasons there, he transferred to Garden City Community College in Kansas. And after a JUCO year, he came back to the NCAA ranks, attending Sam Houston. In 2021, he rushed 173 times for 1,100 yards and 13 touchdowns, was voted All-American second team by the Associated Press and Phil Steele. So we will see what happens with Ramon Jefferson, but Kentucky hoping to land him. And one more note before we get out of here. South Carolina had a nice day of recruiting on Sunday as Gamecocks added 3 recruits to their 2023 class. We start with Cameron Upshaw, a 3-star safety out of the state of Florida. He announced his commitment before his official visit ended. And according to Wes Mitchell of Gamecock Central, 4-star wide receiver Kelton Henderson, another Florida native, he committed to South Carolina. He's the number 19 athlete in the class of 2023, the number 56 overall recruit from the state of Florida. And their third commit was from Connor Cox, a 3-star tight end from the state of Florida, listed at 6'5", 220 pounds. He's the number 34 ranked tight end in the class of 2023. So 3 big pickups there, all from the state of Florida for Shane Beamer and South Carolina. Cameron Upshaw, 3-star safety, Connor Cox, a 3-star tight end, and Kelton Henderson, a 4-star wide receiver. So congrats to South Carolina. Nice pickups there for Shane Beamer. And there you have it. You're all caught up. That is just about going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. My thanks to you guys for listening and subscribing. Reminder to check out the video version on YouTube or continue to subscribe and listen to our audio version of the podcast where you can find wherever you get your podcast. We'll be back later in the week talking more on football. Of course, we had the big news come out recently that the Big 12 going to make their additions next summer So what does that mean for Texas and Oklahoma? We'll have more of that discussion later in the week, so make sure you're subscribed and checking that out later in the week. Again, my thanks to you guys. Thank you for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Now you can go make your second listen. Check out some of our other great Locked On podcasts across the podcast network. And with the NBA draft right around the corner, the NBA Big Board podcast, they're taking an in-depth look into the biggest prospects, latest player rankings, and of course, big boards. Follow Locked On NBA Big Board every day on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Have a great day, everybody.